been at Standing Rock for a couple of months, and I was part of the beginning of the Women's Water Prayer that was held every morning. It's continuing, and it's continuing with a lot of strength. And so what I wanted to do this afternoon was to share a little bit of what we've been doing at Standing Rock. And I also want to share with you that part of the teachings that we received is that prayer is at the center of all the actions that happen there. And the request is that that's how we move forward, is to always have prayer be infused in with what we do, so that Spirit is at the center in whatever way Spirit is for any of us. Every morning, water from different parts of the world would show up for us to add into the cannonball.
One of our Aimsters who was there at Wounded Knee in 73, and just a few nights ago, his voice was trembling, and he said, I've never seen this level of courage in all my life that I'm seeing in the 7th generation that are on the front lines right now. What we're doing is we're raising the bar. We're decolonizing. We're decolonizing ourselves so that we can stand in front, because colonization affected every single one of us. And so we're at an amazing turning point in our history as a country, as a land and as a people. So some of you have been signing a petition that's been going around, and we're really happy to say we got over 800 signatures already within the 24 hours it was out online. So that, with the hundreds of signatures we've just collected this afternoon, we reached our goal to have 1,000 signatures on this petition when we hand it in, and then we'll be gathering more.
The focus of the petition is to the Vermont State Treasurer, Beth Pierce. This is actually inviting her to use her smarts and her support to help do the right thing. The Vermont State Treasury has over $193 million stored in a TD Bank account, the bulk of taxpayer money. TD Bank is one of the biggest backers of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Almost 10% of the funds that Energy Transfer Partners draws on to construct the pipeline is being offered through TD Bank. So our request is that we're calling on the State Treasurer to withdraw the Vermont taxpayer money from TD Bank. I think in the bigger picture of things, we would like them to invest in a Vermont bank of some kind, but for the short term, to withdraw it from support of the Dakota Access Pipeline. I want to add that I spoke with someone at 350 Vermont today who wanted to suggest or add to the message that, and if that's not doable due to federal requirements around treasury money, etc., that she use any and all means available to her office to freeze and remove the money from the Dakota Access Pipeline. So we want to call on her creativity. Some people haven't heard, but you know, this Dakota Access Pipeline was originally supposed to be routed through by the water supply of Bismarck, a predominantly white city. And it was because the citizens there were upset and worried about the environmental impact of the pipeline that it got routed under the water supply of the Standing Rock Sioux. And they're now saying that they want to protect their water. And the reason they have less of a voice, as far as I can tell, is that's just blatant environmental racism through and through. So that needs to be clear when you hear all the messages, when you hear your friends wondering about the messages that say, well, they say this pipeline's not going to break. It's really well built. And well, if it was good enough, if it's good enough for them to say that now, why didn't they say that to the citizens of Bismarck? And why wasn't it good enough to go by their city? So that's worth mentioning. It's also worth mentioning when people say all the vague areas about, you know, well, they're not really ancestral burial grounds. They said that there isn't actually evidence about that the pipeline's not actually going through sacred sites. It's important to know that when you look at the background behind that, it's because the state and the federal authorities responsible for, and the courts taking in that evidence, they weren't willing to take in the testimony of the Standing Rock Sioux's own Historic Preservation Office.
And it's not that historic. There's people on the ground there fighting, and it's their children that are buried up there.
It's recent history. And so in effect the message has been, well, our white archaeologists know better where your sacred sites are than your own people.
Okay, who wants to go to the treasurer's office?
Yeah!
So we'd love a delegation as we continue here. And we're going to start reading it together. Here we go.
We move in so we can.
Dear Governor Peter Shumlin and State Treasurer Beth Pierce, we, the citizens of Vermont, call on you to close the state of Vermont's account with TD Bank, a major investor in the Dakota Access Pipeline, a project which violates treaty rights, human rights, and environmental rights of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. In light of the ongoing abuses suffered by the tribe in their efforts to protect their ancestral burial sites from being desecrated by DAPL, and the risks that DAPL poses to their land and water, we cannot, in good conscience, support the use of our taxpayer money to back this project any longer, directly or indirectly. We believe that our fellow Vermonters also do not want to invest in projects like DAPL that violate treaty rights, human rights, or environmental rights. Both Vermont Senators Bernie Sanders and Patrick Leahy have warned that DAPL is a violation of tribal treaty rights and would have the same impact on the planet as adding 21.4 million more cars to our roads. The force used by DAPL Security and North Dakota Police to ensure completion of the project has been called excessive, inhumane, and wrong and contrary to the UN guiding principles on business and human rights by the UN Human Rights Council. Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid stated that in their opposition to DAPL, the Standing Rock Sioux are standing up for their land, their right to clean water, their right to clean air, and their history. TD Securities has made one of the largest commitments to DAPL among major banks and financial institutions, contributing over $360 million towards its construction. TD's investment in DAPL represents almost 10% of the $3.75 billion in total expended by financial institutions internationally to Energy Transfer Partners, the parent corporation constructing DAPL. The state of Vermont has over $193 million of taxpayer money in TD Bank, an amount equal to over half the money that TD has invested in DAPL. We ask that the state of Vermont do the right thing today and publicly renounce its association with the shameful Dakota Access Pipeline project by divesting from TD Bank. Sincerely, the citizens of Vermont!
Contrition. It is one thing to say words of apology concerning white supremacy and privilege. However, if it is not a deeply felt experience, the deeper patterns will not change. To genuinely understand complicity and accountability, The experience needs to be intellectually, historically, emotionally, and bodily felt. This is the false narrative this is the abusive and false narrative of white supremacy and privilege, as I can benefit from the power symbols of my white history. And in that narrative that I claim as mine, which forms my identity and values, here are some of those symbols. I am an American, blessed by God with manifest destiny, to walk anywhere without fear. The saviors of the world, World War II, the bringers of democracy, particularly Vietnam and Iraq in my lifetime, the right to run pipelines through Japreg Park, a citizen of a nation with the greatest military power ever, a member of the empire unmatched in history, the glorification of patriarchy, and we say, hell fellow, are we not great? The shadow side of this patriarchal history, where all others are invisible, the victims, the genocide, the ecocide, the creation of poverty, the absence of the feminine, the oppression of women, the overt demand and the covert manipulation toward conformity, the humiliation of women expressing masculinity, the humiliation of men expressing the feminine, the creation of sacrifice zones, the land, water, and people at Standing Rock to be sacrificed to the empire unless we stand, the devastation of the life systems of the planet lives in the shadow side, and the spiritual and the emotional and the inner turmoil is projected outward and continues the deathward spiral. The act of genuine contrition calls the shadow to integrate, to heal the inner divide, to end the dualistic way of being, to build community based on vulnerability, mutuality, intimacy, justice, to build an ethic and identity based on love, care, concern, and the well-being of Earth's creatures and life systems. The act of understanding is a way of life. This adjustment of this abusive story will take 7 generations. It is not an act or an event of apology. It is a commitment, no matter how difficult, to transform the inner life as well as the culture in which we live. It is my hope, including an act, a reading, the breath of contrition, will move me, us, and others in this direction. And in that act of healing, the movement toward justice strengthens. We breathe, we walk, some of us run, we always move toward life. When blocked, we non-violently confront, we stand, we stand, we stand, we stand in solidarity with Standing Rock.
And Jesse's made it back, so something happened.
Well, I can tell you it's a lot more gentle than what happens on the front lines at Standing Rock. Security was a lot friendlier to us. They didn't let us go upstairs. They asked us to stay in the lobby, but the treasurer Pierce did come down and meet with us, and she received our petition and the accompanying document from the legal collective at Standing Rock that was sent to the bank in Norway. She shared with us that right now they're actually right in the middle of doing what's called an RFP, where they're taking in bids for other banks as well for where Vermont would put its money. So she said she couldn't share the details of that right now because they're in the middle of the process, but she said she was committed to sitting down with us or anyone who is interested after that process is complete to discuss how they arrived to whatever decision they arrived to and what went into it, and to go over the details of that with us. Anyone else who is there remember anything else specific that's worth mentioning?
I would just make the point that she made the point to share with us a personal story that demonstrates her commitment to the environment. I think she felt that was important.
She talked about how right at the moment that we were delivering the petition, they were having a meeting about protecting the water in Vermont, right at that moment. And they were talking about ways of using funds to help clean up Lake Champlain.
When I say Minnie Wachoni, you say water is life. Minnie Wachoni!
Water is life!
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 A fundraising event tomorrow night at Arts Riot, and we need all of you to turn out and turn your friends out. Raise up our energy and help 350 Vermont continue to do the good work that we're doing across the state. Tomorrow night, Arts Riot.
7:30. Doors open.
7:30.
Why don't thank you.
To the river, we'll come out together.
Watch out